Hey everyone, welcome back to another Persona 5 Fanatics video, and as we all know, the news character that just came out is Futaba. And as I always do, I will be going over a complete Futaba guide. So, Futaba is our first limited 5-star navi. Our other 5-star navi, of course, being Phoebe. Futaba outclasses quite literally Phoebe in every way, in every regard, in my opinion. Especially with the fact that she works completely fine at A0. You don't need her weapon, and you don't need any dupes. She's completely fine. Her weapon and dupes, or always her A1 and weapon, are very minor gains overall. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, I would advise skipping it. Truth be told. Her A1 can kind of almost be worth it over the fact that it gives 12% crit rate. As you guys can see here, I have it. But that's mostly because of the fact that if you watch my summoning video, you guys would have saw that I went 80 for 80 on her, went and grabbed the weapon, grabbed Yui's weapon after grabbing her weapon, winning that. And then I went and did another 10 pull on Futaba banner, and I won another Futaba. That's the whole reason why I have her A1. I would have absolutely skipped it. And then the reason I have her weapon is due to the fact that I like to do weapon testing. So today on stream, whenever this video comes out, I'll be doing weapon testing on her later during that. But with that being said, I will now get into what she actually does. So she kind of works like Rico or Wind. And the reason why I say that is because they both do debuff. This is a debuff, this is a debuff, and then this is a buff. So it works exact same way. So AoE debuff, AoE debuff, and then a buff. But the reason why Futaba works so well is when we look at her data linked established, or her skill 3, which is usable when allies have data storm, which is we'll get into when we get into A0, for 2 turns, increases one ally's attack by 270, and for an additional 21 up to 4600 of worth of her attack. And then also inflicts virus on all foes for 1 turn based on the targeted ally's attribute, which basically change affinities of the foe this is inflicted upon. So, as we see here, there's Null, Repel, Drain. So all 3 of these will become Resist. So now you can start dealing damage to foes who now are basically can't take damage from you. Let's say the enemy is fire immune. Now for 2 turns, she is able to, or for 1 turn, whatever it is, the Null, Repel, and Drain becomes Resist. So now she can start damaging. Resist becomes normal, and normal becomes weak. So that's why she's so good, is due to this weakness implant. And I've said this many times before, but if you ever played Honkai Star Rail, if you remember Silverwolf, kind of the same idea. Silverwolf can implant weakness onto the foes, and you can now do more damage. And if they're already weak to it, you gain an additional 25% weakness damage on top of it. Then she has an AoE defense decrease. And if we look over here, it goes up to a defense cap of 4600. And totally, it goes up to about, I think, 27%, like 30% defense decrease. I haven't done the math on it yet. And then her skill 2 increases the foe's damage taken. But for the most part, even with a little bit of buff, typically you're only looking at using skill 1. Skill 1 into skill 3. Because skill 3 has a 2-turn, or 2 rotation cooldown, I should say. So you use skill 1, turn 1. And then that builds up enough of your data analysis to be able to get your data storm out, to then be able to use your data link establisher skill 3. And then you have an entire rotation where you won't be able to use Futaba skill, and then you go back and use your skill 1 again. For the most part, typically speaking, this is the information I get from some of my friends, such as Earphone, iDots, and others. They basically have confirmed that defense decrease for the most part is typically better than damage taken increase. And that's just the way the formula goes, is that the more armor the more defense the enemy has, the less damage they take, right? As compared to a damage taken increase, this is still decreased due to the amount of the armor, or I say armor because that's what I'm used to in other games, but defense. So that's kind of why defense decrease is ultimately better. And then her last one is a stat buff, which is just increases party stats by 20% of Futaba stats. So we'll get into why Futaba build actually does matter a little bit. Not as much, but still matters a little bit. her talent 1, when Data Storm is active, grant all allies a shield equal to 30% of Futaba's attack. Not too bad. Not that important. And Programming Pro. At the start of battle, Futaba gains 100% to her analysis progress. And that's kind of why we can use the whole skill 1 into skill 3 over and over again. And how do we build up her analysis? Well, if we look at her A0, after an ally uses a skill, Futaba gains 5% to her analysis progress. Also, when they deal weakness damage with a skill, resonance, or highlight, you gain 20% more. So that's how we're able to build it up super quickly, and we're able to use that skill 1 and skill 3. And when we have Data Storm, it increases the party's damage by 10%, 15%, 20%. Of course, based upon level 1, 50, and 70. So basically, we're looking at 20%. And then if it's dealing weakness damage, it's double. So now it goes from 20% to 40%. This was a buff given to Global. Some people tried telling me it's so strong. It's good, but it's not super amazing. It's a nice buff, is what I would say, and what I did say when I saw it on stream, when they did the announcement. As I went over her skill 1, when Futaba's analysis progress reaches 100%, or when Data Storm is active, increases allies' critical rate by 12%. Why people hype this up so much, or have been, is due to the fact of we can now stop running. If I go over here, Revelation cards on my main damage dealer, you see I have a crit multi on my Yui. So instead of running a crit rate card, I can now start thinking of running crit multi cards instead, as long as I got some good crit rate on her. As we see here, if this went into more crit rate, this would be a real good card when I'm using Futaba with Makoto. So that's kind of why it works out so well, is because we can stop running crit rate and start running crit multi. It's basically just a way to min-max score. So that's why people have talked about it so much, and why it's so good to some people. Me, I think it's overrated. I think it's absolutely not necessary. If you're looking to min-max your Futaba teams, then absolutely A1 is good. And I do believe it's better than getting her weapon, personally. But of course, her weapon is cheaper. Her A2 basically just increases your allies' attack when you're using skills, and then also it stops your ally from dying. So for one ally, if they die, instead of being reduced to below 1 HP, they go to 1 HP, and they gain a shield to all allies for 3 turns, equal to 20% of Futaba's attack. So it's kind of a stop death mechanic. Not too bad. I don't think it's important, because if your allies are dying, I think realistically you are doing something wrong, or you're not doing something correctly, right? That's my personal opinion. If you disagree with me, you have the right to that. Skill 3 is just a data link and vulnerability skill increase. This is her A4. When an ally uses a highlight, Futaba gains 1 security flaw stack, and attacks up to 2 times. When Futaba uses Pentis Complete, or Vulnerability Found, spend all security flaw stacks to increase the effect by 8% for each stack. Honestly, not too bad. I don't think that's too bad. I don't think you would ever stop at A4, because if you're going to A4, you're probably looking at going A6, because her A6 is completely nasty. After we look at her A5, which is a Pentis Complete increase, but her A6 is disgusting. And if people are going for A6, I don't blame them, because what it does is now, instead of it making a single target for her data link, her skill 3 for the weakness implant, it now targets all of your allies and gives all enemies the weakness. So if I take my rainbow team like this, I have Closer, who is Bless, I have Cord, who is Electric, and then I have Smoko, who is Psy. It weakness implants all 3 of those. So it'll do Bless, Electric, and Psy. It is disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. I will say. And I don't blame people. It's just like I don't blame people for going A6 Cord. A6 Cord is a monster, just like A6 Futaba is going to be a monster. I'm not going for it because I don't want to put that much money. And on top of that, it increases the duration of Data Storm to 3 turns and increases all allies' weakness damage by 10% and damage up by 25%. Like I said, it is a complete monster and almost a game changer in that regard. So if you went A6 Futaba, I respect the hell out of you. I absolutely respect that. Going over her weapon quickly, like I said, I don't think her weapon is that it is a overall increase, but I think her 4-star weapon is just so good. So this is Techno Mage Ultra FS. Increases increases her attack by 30%. When an ally deals weakness damage, increases the ally's attack by 10% for 2 turns. And after Futaba inflicts a debuff with a skill, increases the foe's critical damage taken by 7% for 3 turns, up to 2 times. So this is a 15.2% critical damage increase. While her 4-star, I need to still maxed up, but increase her attack by 24%. And after inflicting virus on a foe, which is her skill 3, her weakness implant, increases the target's damage taken by 19%. Which you're basically always having this rocked. You'll have one turn of downtime for this, while compared to in between. While compared to this, you basically always have this 15.2% because you're always inflicting a defense decrease, or you're inflicting the skill 3. So you're always having that going. So that's why this is slightly better. But overall, this is maybe a 4 to 5% total increase. And it could cost you up to 14k. And that's kind of why I would say I would rather, if I'm going to look for a vertical increase investment for Futaba, I think her A1's better. Because it at least allows you to play a little bit differently, like when I was talking about with the fact that I can start running more crit damage instead of crit rate cards. So that's kind of why I like it more. Because it will be it should be a bigger overall increase. I still need to do my testing on it, which I will be doing today, like I said. But overall, Futaba is a very, very strong character. And if you're not pulling her, I don't blame you. But I think she is a overall account-wide increase. And I think she is a very strong pickup. I would highly recommend picking her up overall. But going on into her build now, her Revelation cards, what I'm looking at is a Labor with Resolve. Why Resolve? Because with the Resolve and Labor, when equipped by Elucidator Phantom Thief, after using a skill to inflict a debuff on a foe, decreases target's defense by 10%. We already kind of went over why defense decrease is so good. And then what I'm actually looking at is, one, I'm looking for an HP, because that's the only thing we can have, an attack percent Moon, a crit rate Star, and a attack percent on my Sky. And then really, I'm just looking to maximize, get as much crit multi and crit rate across every single card. While, of course, you want to hit that 4600 attack, because as we went over her skills already. If I go here, the defense cap is at 4600 attack. So once you hit that 4600 attack, you've now maximized the amount of debuffs you can do. So 4600 attack. This will be up to 4600 attack, and this will also go up to a 4600 attack cap. So all of that. And of course, your main leads is always going to be your skill 1 and skill 3. I also do her skill 2 because I like using her skill 2. I'm not a mid-max person. I like to use all of her abilities. That's what I do. And then, like I said, you just want to get as much crit rate and crit multi as possible, because of the fact that it gives 20% of her stats to your allies. So 20% of your attack, 20% of your crit rate, 20% of your crit multi. So now your allies are getting even more crit rate and crit multi across the board. So if I actually look at what she's right now, so we can see here I have 27% crit rate and 44% crit multi. So 20% of that is what, 5.4% crit rate. So now I'm able to give even more crit rate too. So let's look at who's someone I actually invested in. Let's look at Makoto. I have some good investment in Makoto. So Makoto's right now is sitting at 18%. Why is she at 18%? Well, because I'm actually using a crit multi, and then I haven't worked on my Makoto in a while. But I would actually add 5.4%. So she's actually, with my Futaba, she'll be sitting at over 20. Like, she's almost at 25% crit multi with, of course, crit rates. And then she also will get an additional 9% crit multi. It's not big, it's not massive, but it is a nice little increase. And that's kind of why we're more so focused, especially on Futaba and the future Anj. We're looking at mostly mid-maxing the attack, as long as we get above that 4600 attack. And then, of course, just focusing on trying to get crit rate and crit multi. My labor cards are absolutely garbo, as we can see here. Every one of my labor cards is just not good at all. This is my best labor. This is my best card. And it's still pretty garbo. Because I got two times into ailment accuracy. But I'm going to worry about that and getting that up later. That can be a long-term investment. Lastly, the last thing I'm going to be talking about is what are my teams looking at like? Quite frankly, every team. I will run Futaba on every single team. It doesn't matter. She works for every single team, quite literally. The only team I could maybe Fox. Because Miyu or Puppet is still a overall buff for Fox. But every other team, I can just rock with my Futaba. And so when I'm looking at the current, I believe is the current SOS current SOS is what? Yeah. So current SOS is actually Fox team. And then also we'll be using a Mesa team. So I would be using my Futaba on my Mesa side. And then as we can see here, I'm using pairing Phoebe on my Fox side. You could also use Puppet instead if you don't have Phoebe. But you're basically looking at which one is a overall buff. But with that being said, I'm going to end the video there. I hope you guys have a good day, good night. And let me know down below what you guys are thinking of Futaba. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye for now.